Hi, my name's Maria Burns from Cribbstown Sewing Centre, and this video is about masks. So I have developed a pattern using bits and pieces from other people's masks that I've seen on the internet and put together mine. I have a pattern that's available to any of my own clients who come to the sewing centre, and that's free of charge to you. So if you just drop me a wee text, that will be lovely. So the video will start now. Okay, so this is the mask pattern, and in the pack I have 4 different sizes. So you can just choose which mask you think is the best one suited for you. There's a guide for adult male, adult female, smaller female or older child, and then the child mask, which is actually referred to as the baby mask. So when you get this, you can either trace it out or you can just cut it out. On the photocopier, I kind of lost a little bit of the ink there, so you just fill that little bit in. It goes up in a little point. So you end up then, you have your pattern pieces. Lay those on your fabric and you'll be cutting them out. Now I just want to explain about this little extended bit on the pattern piece. So here you'll see I have a crease line. So if I have enough fabric and I'm cutting it out on the fold, I just fold that back in, out of the way, and that's it. I put that to the fold of the fabric and I cut the masks out. So that will give me then a mask that looks like this. Complete, and this is a folded edge. If I use the flap, now this can be if you're a little short of fabric and you end up with this little extended bit out here. So that's just giving you a little bit of extra seam allowance on the edge so that you can fold that back once it's sewn, and then your seam line will be coming down here. So once you've cut everything out, you should have 2 side linings, 1 center lining, and then whichever pattern you've used, the extension, where this is where the seam line will go, or if you've cut it out on the fold, it will look like this. Now you can see here that this seam line curves. So this is about just under 1/2 inch or 1 centimetre in. You curve right really close to the folded edge, and then you curve away again and out to here. Now when I'm doing it, what I do is I put the edge of the sewing machine foot onto this edge and follow that round until I get to this sort of triangular corner, and then I gauge it myself and bring it round and just let the needle follow through round to that curved edge. And then when you get to here, so that's about 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters up, then you're coming back down to here. On the piece with the extended, if you're using it, this is the depth you'll have here. So this would be where the crease line was that I pointed out earlier in the paper pattern. So you're stitching right out round to the crease line and then curving back in, and it curves up around the top edge as well. These are the lining pieces. This is the center lining piece here, and you'll notice I have overlocked the edges. These are the 2 side lining pieces, and I've overlocked both edges of those. Now what you need to do now is press the edge over of the center lining only. Press that over, and then what you're going to do is you're going to top stitch that down. I don't know if you can see, yeah, you can see this top stitching there, and that's just to hold that edge down here. So then you sew the center seam, so this is a folded edge here, so you sew the center seam. This point here is about 1 centimetre in, just under 1/2 inch this way, and the point at which you start the curve is about 1 inch or 2.5 centimetres up there. At the top edge, this is here about 1.5 inches down, which is where you're aiming for. So when you start sewing here, you're using the edge of the foot, your sewing machine foot, on the edge of the fabric. But when you get to here, you need to just judge by eye, and you're aiming 1.5 inches or 4 centimetres down, and then you're nearly on the fold there. And that's just, you just continue that little stitch line just carefully round, and then about 1 inch up from the bottom, you start to curve back in again. This is the main fabric for the mask. Okay, so what I've done, I have sewn this seam here, I've marked it with a pen, alright, so sewing this seam here, and now what you need to do is open the mask out, and you're going to fold the bottom edge up to meet the two corners together. When you get those up there, press this edge here. So it will look like this. So you'll see I've marked in another little line of stitching. So this is about 1.5 inches, 4 centimetres in. So from there to there, again on the edge of the foot, and just stitch that little line in. This is going to form a little pleat in the side of the mask. Just down in there. Okay, so once that's done, then turn it up the way and press it again so that the fold of the pleat in the mask fabric folds up. So you'll see here I've positioned the scissors along the fold, and I'm going to clip that down. So I've put 2 little X's on here, so a little X there and a little X at the bottom edge as well, and then this edge will get clipped as well. So here, this is the style of mask that is cut down the front. So I'm just cutting off that corner. This is already split, so you can trim away here a little bit as well, just to take the excess away. Hard to cut one-handed. So, and then just little snips to help the curve sit out flat. Just continue those on round. Now, this one is the one with the fold. This section here is the fold of the fabric. We've cut up here and we've cut down. It's just to where the fabric starts to get very close, the stitching starts to get very close to the edge. And I've pressed that back so that you can see where the seam is in here. And then this is where I have clipped the seam as well. So this seam is clipped too. This little bottom edge here on the one that has the fold, I don't clip it. I've just left it whole. Clipped it in this one because it's a continuous curve, but that is just sitting fine once it's stitched up. Okay, you need to repeat that clipping process with the center lining of the mask. So this will get the snip down here and a little snip to here, and then clip these bits here. So once you've sewn the center seam and you've done all the clipping, these are the pleats at the sides. They've been pressed up the way, and this is the bottom of the mask, this is the top edge of the mask. So this is the one that has the separate pieces that are sewn together, and then this is the inside of the one with the fold, and you can see this is the split seam at the top, and then goes into, oh, a bit hard to get that open, into the fold, which is here, and then the split seam at the bottom again. Little pleats on the side, and that's the only difference between these two styles of mask, how you sew them together at this stage. Everything else now, with putting the lining in, works the same for both masks. So now we are going to put the center lining into the mask. Just make sure that you have everything up the same way. So this edge here, this is the bottom edge of the mask, and this is the bottom edge of the mask. So I'm going to put this edge to this edge, and this is right sides together. So here I have the top edge of the mask, and I have matched the seams, put a little pin either side of the seam, and one little pin on either edge. And then at the bottom, repeated the same thing, matched the seam at the bottom, little pin either side of the seam, and a little pin at either edge. So now I'm positioning the side lining. Okay, so the mask is underneath. This is the center lining. So the wrong side of the lining is facing up. The right side of the mask side lining is facing down. You'll notice as well, we're about just under 1/2 centimetre in from the edge, and this is where the finished edge of the side lining positions. Match it up with the running edge of the mask. So underneath here we have the mask. So now I have pinned the side mask in place. So the 2 pins I had on this side of the main fabric mask, I have just taken out and replaced as I've put the side mask over the top. So this is meant to overlay. That's the edge of the center lining in there. So that's meant to overlay on top of it. And then here you'll notice that there is this little bit of excess fabric because I've also pinned along the edge of the bottom. This will become the little fold, to fold down the way, that we put in to the side of the mask. So you can see here, this is the stitch line. I've used the edge of the foot along here as the guide, and then you can see that that little dip occurs there. Stitch down to here and the tight little curve at the edges, all the way down to there. Now what we're going to do is take these pins out. This seam will get clipped, and then we're going to do a little bit of pressing. So here I have the mask with both side linings pinned in place. So when you are pinning the bottom edge, just judge this distance the same top and bottom. Get a pin in there, take the pin from the underneath, put it in there, and pin down this edge. Same on the other side. Now what we're going to do is stitch with straight stitch along the top edge. What you need to watch out for is this is a curved edge. So you're starting here, and you do an immediate little turn on the machine here and follow up round the edge. Now this doesn't look like so much whenever you are sewing or pinning it, but when you are sewing it, you'll notice that this actually curves up and then comes down into a little dip. You sew across the center seam and then you curve back up again and then down the other side to this little tight curve there. When you're sewing along the bottom, it looks pretty much like a straight edge, but again, because we've taken this little dart here at the bottom edge of the mask, when you're sewing along, there is a very slight little dip there. So you need to maneuver the fabric. So you'll start sewing at this edge, maneuver the fabric when you get to about here, so you know that that is sitting out flat, and then feed the rest of the fabric in, because that can gather up on you and you'll catch the front of the mask in there. So what you want to do is just press this section here down flat. What you'll get is this little bit of excess fabric which will form the little pleat. So if you poke it up in line with, this is the seam line here where the pleat is on the right side. So just line up with it and fold it down flat, and then keep it in line the whole way along and get a crease in here on both sides. Sorry, forgot to mention there that this top edge should be clipped. When you're turning the mask right side out, turn one side lining to the right side and then turn all of the rest to the other side. So when you turn it out, it'll look something like this, okay? So it's a little bit messy when you turn it out. What you have to do is roll these seams right out to the edge, and we're going to press those in place. So here I am at the ironing board, and I have really pushed that seam out. And now I'm going to get the iron, just pop that onto it, and we'll have a nice flat seam. So here I have this edge completely pressed. It's pressed all the way around now. So what we're going to do here is fold the pleat into place, and then this edge will fold over. Now you need to do it neatly, but I can sort of manage it with just one hand. Fold it over and fold it over again. So just about half an inch or 1.2 centimeters over. Okay. Now what you should have is sort of, see this little sort of triangle of lining showing at either end. Now you need that because when you top stitch around the edge of the mask, you can't close the channel at either end. So you need to have that sort of little triangle of space. So now I have folded these over. I've got the little space of triangle, and I've put a pin either side of the creased pleat just to hold everything in place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom edge and sew a straight line of stitching right to the top on both sides. I'm just showing you this angle. So I have the needle in here and you're going to stitch along here. So you're starting right in that corner so that you can top stitch right on the edge the whole way round. So I'm just showing you here, I've top stitched there and I'm pivoting the fabric with the needle down in on the next corner, and I'm going to sew up this edge and then round the top and down the other edge to meet the start of the stitch line. So essentially this is your mask finished. You've done all of the top stitching and all you need to do is put elastic into the channels on either side. However, what we're going to do is we're going to add another little bit and put in a nose wire. Okay, so you have to make a little channel for the nose wire. So if you use, this is the center lining, if you use the joining point of the center lining, stitch down a few stitches, and then stitch straight across following the edge of your foot on the stitch line. Stop there, reverse, and then we're going to insert the nose wire in, and then we're going to stitch down and close it in. Now this is the nose wire that I am using, and let you see the length on the board. These squares are 2 inches, so I actually had them cut at 2 3/4 inches and then turned in the ends with a pair of pliers and squished them down just to take away the rough edge of the wire. This is covered garden wire that I'm using. There are other bits and pieces out there, just whatever you have or you can find. What this does is it helps the mask to fit more closely in over your nose. So this is the wire inserted. I've made the little casing here, stitched along. I stitched to there and stopped. Then I inserted the wire at this end, popped it in. The wire is there, and I stitched down to here. You just need to push the wire on in a little bit so that you don't sew over it and damage your sewing machine. So this is the wire now giving a little bit of shape here, and this is the pocket which you can insert a filter of your choice in there if you want to. We go in under there and then doubly covered there. The elastic for the lady size mask is 8.5 inches. That's 22 centimeters, and you cut the 2 strips, thread them through with a safety pin or a clip, anything at all that will take it through, and then you can either tie or stitch the ends closed. So you can see here how I do it is I lay one layer of elastic flat on top of the other, and then I'm using a hand sewing needle and I put in a couple of little back stitches just to hold the layers on top of each other. Once I have those in, then I take it to the sewing machine. Set the sewing machine at a small zigzag, so usually about 2.5 wide and 1.5 length. Now this width of elastic isn't wide enough to catch on the dog feet when you're taking it through the machine, so you do actually need to pull it through. So once you've got the needle positioned down into the elastic, hold the elastic at either end and just gently, not forcibly, guide it through the sewing machine, because it won't travel and it can get pushed down in and jam in your machine. So this is the elastic positioned with the needle down in here into the elastic, and I have the zigzags already set. So once you start to sew, you then need to take this hand and just gently pull through the elastic out to the back. You can see the dog feet are here and here, so there's nothing which will help the elastic to travel through the machine. Okay, so this is now the finished mask.